I'm not gonna lie, the idea was stupid from the start. An abandoned motel, at night alone? It's the kind of thing you see in horror movies and scream at the character not to do. But you know how it is, curiosity and boredom make a dangerous mix. I'd heard about that place before, everyone in town had. It's like an urban legend, the kind of spot for weird stories. People said creepy stuff happened there, but I always thought it was just people looking for attention. The place was kinda out of the way, at the end of a poorly maintained dirt road. It was like time had forgotten about it. No fence, no trespassing, signs, nothing. I parked the car on the side, turned off the headlights, and just sat there, staring at the crumbling building. The silence was so heavy I started questioning my choices. But I was already there, right? So I took a deep breath, stuffed my phone in my pocket, and went ahead. The motel itself was a dump. The walls were faded, covered in graffiti, and all the windows were smashed. Some rooms still had doors, but most of them were just gaping holes, like someone had kicked them all down. The floor was littered with debris, empty bottles, bits of wood, old trash. The place smelled like rot, like something forgotten. And the air, it was thick, like you could feel the history of that place weighing on your shoulders. I kept moving deeper in, walking through the narrow hallways and trashed rooms. One of them had a mattress on the floor, stained with who knows what. The more I walked, the more the silence got under my skin. It felt like the whole place was waiting for something. And that's when I heard it. I swear there was no one else around. But out of nowhere, I heard a woman's voice, faint, almost a whisper. My whole body froze instantly. The first thing that came to mind was, okay, this has to be some security guard, or maybe just someone else who snuck in. But then again, logic told me nobody in their right mind would be there at that hour. My heart was racing, and I started sweating like crazy. The voice seemed to be coming from somewhere deeper inside, but the echo made it feel both close and impossible to locate. Without thinking too much, I ducked into one of the rooms. There was an old, torn-up couch inside, and I threw myself behind it. I stayed there, trying to listen to anything. My breathing was so heavy I thought it would give me away. The silence came back, but now it was different, more oppressive, like the place was about to swallow me whole. Fear clung to my skin, every shadow seemed to move. For a moment, I thought maybe I was just paranoid, that it was all in my head. But then I heard that noise. It came from upstairs, like someone dragging something heavy or knocking over a piece of furniture. This time, my gut screamed, "Get the hell out, now!" But like a complete idiot, I let curiosity take over again. I had to see what it was. I needed to know what was going on. The stairs leading to the second floor were so rotten that every step felt like the wood would give way. I went up slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. The hallway up there was even darker. The room doors were busted open, and the walls had burn marks. The smell was unbearable, a mix of mold, grime, and something rotten. I was checking out one of the rooms when I saw her. She was crouched in the corner, facing away from me. Her tangled hair covered most of her face, but I could see her forehead was all bloody. The scene was so messed up that for a second, I froze, not sure if it was real or just my mind playing tricks. She was trembling, like she was either laughing or sobbing quietly. Panic hit me when she got up. The way she moved, shaky and frantic, was straight out of a horror movie. Without thinking twice, I turned and bolted. I didn't even look back. I flew down those stairs like my life depended on it, and at that moment, it really felt like it did. The sound of my footsteps echoed through the whole building, like something was chasing me. When I got outside, I sprinted to my car and sped off without even buckling my seatbelt. The adrenaline was like gasoline, and my blood felt like ice. I drove for a few miles, my hands shaking on the wheel. It wasn't until I was far enough away that I finally stopped and took a deep breath. I called the cops from a payphone and made up a story. I said I saw something weird while driving down the road but didn't go near the motel. There was no way I wanted my name tied to that mess. To this day, I still don't know what really happened in that motel. That woman? I have no clue who she was or what she was doing there. All I know is I'm never going near that place again. If I learn anything? Yeah, sometimes curiosity is a bitch, and some things you just shouldn't want to know. Man, I'll never forget that day. It all started when my older brother, Seb, decided it'd be a great idea to explore an abandoned house out in the middle of nowhere in Georgia. I was 15, and he was 18, in that phase where he wanted to show off how brave and cool he was. He thought it would be a big adventure, and honestly, I was bored out of my mind and just went along with it. We parked the car in a hidden spot, far from the main road. The place looked like it had been forgotten by time. The road to the house was covered in weeds and debris, giving it a sense of abandonment that made you feel like you were stepping back in time. Seb was all hyped up, laughing and talking about how cool this was gonna be. I was kinda skeptical but decided to go with it. The weirdest thing started happening when we were walking down this concrete road that was overgrown with weeds and looked straight out of a horror movie. I noticed a woman following us. What really creeped me out was that she had her hands behind her back and this bizarre smile on her face. I tried not to make a fuss, but something about the way she was watching us gave me chills. I kept glancing at Seb, trying to steer the conversation to keep him distracted, but he was too focused on his idea of an adventure. When we got to the house, man, it looked even scarier up close. The windows were shattered, doors were falling off, and the place had a decaying vibe that was just chilling. Seb was all excited, acting like he'd found the lost ark or something. I was more concerned about the woman, who seemed to have vanished, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still out there, watching us. We went inside the house, and the silence was deafening. Dust and spider webs were everywhere. Seb was busy opening an old box he found on the floor, trying to act like a detective from some old movie. But for me, the real mystery was the woman. I kept peeking out the window, hoping to see any sign of her, but nothing. Every noise, every creak of the floorboards, made my heart race. It felt like the house was alive and hiding something bad. Seb was so caught up in his exploration that he didn't even notice how weird things were getting. I just wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible. It felt like we were in a horror movie where the hero is always the last one to realize the real danger. When we finally decided it was time to leave, things got really tense. The woman was outside, on the road, and now she seemed to be even closer. Seb was so distracted with the old box he'd found that he didn't realize we were in trouble. I tried to rush things, practically dragging him out of the house. The woman was now standing in the road, with that same weird smile on her face. I was in full panic mode. Everything felt like a nightmare. My heart was pounding, and I could barely think. All I wanted was to get in the car and get the hell out of there. Seb was busy trying to open the trunk to put the box away, while I was basically shoving him into the car. When we finally got in and started driving away, I looked back and saw the woman still there, by the side of the road, watching us. Her smile looked like she was enjoying our fear. It was one of the most terrifying moments of my life. Seb was all excited about the box, completely oblivious to the fact that we might have just narrowly avoided something way worse. We drove away as fast as we could, but the feeling that we were still being watched never left me. What did that woman want? Why was she following us? I didn't know and maybe never would. What I do know is that night left me with a sense of unease that's never fully gone away. The terror of that situation was real, and I was just glad to be out of there. But the lingering question remained, what if things had turned out differently? You know those stupid ideas that come up on any random night when everyone's had a few too many drinks and starts acting like they're brave? That's exactly how me, Mike, Josh, and Brad ended up deciding to explore that old abandoned psychiatric hospital. There were a ton of stories about the place, everything from it being haunted to some weird rituals happening there. It seemed like the perfect setting for a Saturday night, because we're idiots. We got there around 10 p.m. The place looked even creepier than the photos online. You know the type of old building that seems to have been swallowed by nature? Twisted trees and overgrown weeds covering what was left of the walls, like time itself had given up on fighting it. The entrance was wide open, a rusty metal door swinging with the wind. I don't know what got into us, but it felt like a call, a challenge. Laughing and acting like we were tough, we decided to go in. Inside was even worse. The floor creaked, there was a smell of mildew and rust in the air, like the building was decomposing. The silence inside was heavy, the kind that makes your ears ring, and all we could hear were the echoes of our footsteps. Every corner we turned seemed darker than the last, walls covered in disturbing graffiti, decades of accumulated filth, and this dense, oppressive feeling, like something invisible was hovering over us. But that wasn't even the worst part. It was the feeling. You know when you enter a place and the air feels thicker, harder to breathe? Like something or someone is watching, waiting. And despite that weird feeling, we kept going. Idiots. We were on the second floor, making jokes to lighten the mood, but everyone felt that the atmosphere had changed. The place was a maze of hallways and empty rooms, filled with marks you'd rather not know the origin of. Then we heard it. A muffled sound from downstairs, from the basement. It was like something heavy dragging, maybe a door or someone? We couldn't tell. We stood there for a second, exchanging glances. Even Mike, who always played the funny guy, went quiet. I wanted to get the hell out of there. But of course, curiosity won. Why the hell didn't we just leave? No, instead, we went down those old stairs, each step creaking like it was about to collapse. When we got downstairs, the smell was even worse, a mix of mildew, urine, and something I didn't want to identify. It was pitch dark, Brad's flashlight trembling in his hand, reflecting off the damp, cracked walls. That's when we saw him. At first, I thought it was just more trash, but no. It was a guy. Crouched in the corner of the room, rocking back and forth. His hair was a mess, his clothes looked like they came from a dumpster, and his eyes, man, those eyes were just empty. It wasn't just a lost soul, it was much worse. There was something deeply wrong with him that made my stomach churn. The silence was broken by a sound that froze me, his scream. A dry, desperate scream, like it came from a deep well of pain and madness. That's when it hit me, we weren't alone, and the worst was about to happen. I didn't think, I just ran. Ran like my life depended on it, and it probably did. I heard the others running behind me, the sound of our boots echoing down the hall. But what scared me the most was the sound of that freak's scream getting closer and closer. When we finally got out of the hospital, the terror only got worse. The darkness of the surrounding forest was complete, and we ran without knowing where, just trying to escape that living nightmare. I felt branches scratching my skin, heard the guy's heavy breathing, and the sound of something, or someone, breaking twigs behind us. It was him, I knew it. The guy was armed with a broken bottle, swinging it like a madman, ready to use it if he caught us. Every second felt like an eternity as we tried to find our way back to the car. When we finally saw the car's dim lights, I almost cried with relief. But the nightmare wasn't over yet. We reached the car only to see Mike, hands shaking, trying to unlock the doors while the freak appeared on the trail. He threw the bottle with a force I'd never expect from someone in that state. Luckily, he missed, but the sound of it shattering on the ground was enough to make my heart stop for a second. We got in the car, and Mike took off like there was no tomorrow, leaving the psycho behind, still shouting in the dark. After that night, nobody wanted to talk about exploring anymore. Everyone was quiet, even avoiding thinking about what happened. I don't know who that guy was or what led him to live in that place, but he wasn't a ghost or some urban legend. He was a real monster, and that's a lot scarier than any ghost story. I still hear his screams sometimes, echoing in my head. And every time I think about getting into some weird place again, I remember. Remember that some things are better left alone, because you never know what might be waiting for you. Like and subscribe to our channel.